So this chapter 3 of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika is called Mystic Arresting Actions. Verse 107 says, the Kundalini life force energy potency sleeps at the base. It gives liberation to yogis and restriction to foolish ones. The proficient yogi knows Kundalini. Now, Michael Beloved's analysis of this verse. When the physical body rests, Kundalini repairs it. With the core self decommissioned from the body, but with the self's energies still being utilized, and with the subtle form displaced out of the physical one, the Kundalini completes routine maintenance. After the repairs are done, Kundalini instructs that nutrients be distributed to various cells. These nutrients are slowly transported to various parts of the body. A small quantity is used by each cell, but most of it is held in storage just outside a cell or in a special pocket in a cell. Kundalini tallies this to calculate the total energy reserved stored in the trunk of the body. This tally system, as seen on the physical plane, takes the form of the Kunda bulb, which is located in the central trunk of the body. And there's illustrations in this book to show you where these things are at in the psyche. So the application of this verse, this book includes not just the analysis of the verse, but how you actually apply it. In advanced yoga practice, a yogi gradually, over a long time, slowly but surely, strips the Kundalini of its autonomy. This is not easy to accomplish because the yogi must take up many tasks which the Kundalini did all by itself. As a great king may never have to put on his shirt, pants, and shoes, and may have no idea how to do that, so the core self may be ignorant of how to maintain the inside of the subtle body. Servants of the king know the chores of dressing the monarch. If the king dismisses them and does not know how to do their services, he will be lost because of ignorance. Many people come to learn Kundalini Yoga, but when they are confronted with having to assume tasks which Kundalini does, they become discouraged. It is possible to take control from Kundalini, and if it were not, there would be no hope of liberation for any living entity. However, it requires patience and consistent practice. Kundalini runs a bliss energy taxation system where it takes pleasure in return for the services it performs in maintaining the psyche. A yogi should change this system so that the excess energy of the cells is used in the head of the subtle body and not in the sexual facilities of it. Now, I want to read one more verse to you. It's verse 108. So, this is the verse. Kundalini life force was fittingly described as a coiled shape, which is like a serpent. He who moves that energy potency is no doubt liberated. Okay, I'm going to read it again. Kundalini life force was fittingly described as a coiled shape, which is like a serpent. He who moves that energy potency is no doubt liberated. Now, here's the analysis of that verse. In the reptilian forms, like those of alligators, the Kundalini is extended much further down so that Muladhara chakra has a wider distribution through the tail. That's the base chakra. Four-footed, well-developed animals like tigers also have that extension in the form of a tail. In the human species, the tail is absent, and Muladhara chakra extends a short distance from the sex organ chakra, but with nerves which extend downwards through the thigh, legs, and feet. Kundalini's whole length extends through the spine, through the neck, into the head, with enough length to peek out through the brow or crown chakras, but it cannot maintain itself in that stretched feature. Its natural shape is from Muladhara chakra to halfway between the navel and heart-lung complex chakra. This is why it is said to have 3 1/2 coils. The first and most powerful coil is at the base chakra. The second and most excitement-driven coil is at the sex chakras. The third and most invigorating coil is at the third chakra. The remaining half coil is a conduit which communicates the heart-lung complex with the navel complex. While for most human beings it is sufficient for Kundalini to remain in 3 1/2 coils, for a yogi or yogini, this is unsatisfactory. The yogini reconfigures the Kundalini by forcing it to straighten out. It does not do so willingly. And even when it is motivated to straighten, it desires to go wherever it will. A yogi applies the locks, which barricade it and causes it to go through the Sushumna Nadi central spinal passage into the brain. Once it enters the brain, it hesitates for an instant, and if the yogi does not have sufficient energy pushing it, it subsides again into the 3 1/2 coils. If there is sufficient energy under it, it will try to go in any direction once it enters the head of the subtle body, but the yogi defines where it will go by applying the mind lock. Okay, here's the application, and then I'm done with my reading. So here's the application of this verse 108. Just moving the Kundalini up through the spine does not qualify a yogi as a liberated entity, but it does mean that he is no longer a regular in the mundane evolutionary cycle. Once a yogi or yogini habitually raises Kundalini on a daily basis, he is on his way to become a siddha, perfected being who has stepped away from the mundane evolutionary cycle. Initially, the subtle body is upgraded by taking help and suggestions from material nature. At first, the subtle body is a spatial form which is spherical without limbs or even senses. Those who have just come into the material creation from the Brahman effulgence, the spiritual existence, become involved in the development of material bodies. They also have subtle bodies, but those subtle forms are physical body dependent psychic mechanisms. Over time, over billions of years, over millions of eons, these entities get suggestion from material nature as to the possibility of how to better differentiate themselves from other living entities who transmigrate through the life forms side by side with them. Eventually, after becoming many life forms of varied species, they find themselves in the species of a leading predator, a creature whose form has the tools and weapons necessary to dominate the environment. After spending millions of years as the top predator, they get the idea that there might be another type of evolution somewhere, somehow. This idea is brought into the material world by divine beings like Krishna and Shiva. Taking assistance from these deities and their agents, such souls get transferred into the Siddha Loka environment, where they can upgrade their subtle bodies and move to a divine situation in the Chit Akash sky of consciousness. Now, if that's not inspiration, I don't know what is. Let's Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, Om Peace Peace together. Inhale. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. For the whole world and every being in it, inhale. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. Couple of deep breaths. All right, guys. Do you have any questions? This is the type of richness of concentrated wisdom that we find in just 2 verses of this Pradipika. So it's worth it. Go on Amazon, order it, keep it, by your bed or on your book stand or whatever, and just, throughout the rest of this life, just read it. Learn from it. Execute your practice more with more education, with less ignorance. That's what this is for. This is a gift from the gods, really. So, anything? All right. Okay, good. So,